Folks, it's always great to hear about prisoners with their wonderful testimony while they're incarcerated, how they came to Christ, how their lives are turned around. That should be a good thing, right? It shouldn't be something where they're actually forced to stay in prison 6 months longer because they had this life-changing experience. Well, we're going to talk about a case matter like this that we are taking on at Pacific Justice Institute in the state of Oregon. But first, I want to talk about something that's happening in California. It's going to potentially impact all across the United States. It's a very radical change within the California curriculum, the health education curriculum. And to talk with us more about this and its ramifications on people, not just in California, but outside California potentially, I want to welcome to the show one of our attorneys, Matt McReynolds, who's calling right now from our Sacramento office. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Brad. Always good to be on.
Now, Matt, tell us about the California State Board of Education's proposed health frameworks. Why should parents be concerned about this kind of curriculum and what's going on with this, especially if they're not living in the state of California? Say they're in New Jersey or Wisconsin or someplace else, Florida. Why should they be concerned about this pending, radical, outrageous proposed curriculum?
Well, a couple of reasons, Brad. First of all, because the same ideas that we're experiencing here are in academia everywhere. They're being accepted by teachers' unions everywhere, and so they're filtering down to the local levels that way. But another reason, Brad, a big reason, is that textbooks are written for large states like California. People may not realize this, but if you live in a small or a medium-sized state or jurisdiction, your local school board actually has very limited choices in terms of the textbooks they adopt. And so the publishers write these things for the larger markets, the larger states like California, based on what their standards are, and then they offer those and to the smaller states and jurisdictions all across the country. And chances are that what's being enacted here is going to directly affect parents all over the country.
Wow. Okay, so this is a big deal, not just for the large state of California, but all across the United States. So if someone's living in a small state outside, away from California, they should still be concerned because these textbooks that are used by their schools are often drafted by companies that look to California and their educational standards, which is what we're talking about today. Now, let's get right to the basic core issues here of this framework. Why should parents be concerned about this new proposed framework, which has a very, very good chance of being adopted by the state of California State Board of Education?
Well, Brad, I think when most people think about health education, they think about things like sanitation, teaching kids how to have good hygiene, how to take care of themselves. And this is much, much different than the health education that probably you or I or most of our listeners got in when we went to school. And this touches on so many different areas of concern. We can't even get to all of them today, but we're talking about introduction of radical concepts like gender identity. We're talking about sex education. We're talking about this whole weird concept of spiritual abuse that we'll get to in a few minutes. And we're talking about, lastly, the blatant promotion of the ACLU and Planned Parenthood in health class.
Wow. Okay, you just covered a lot of outrageous points that probably have a lot of parents very concerned. Let's talk about specifically the promotion of Planned Parenthood. I mean, this is a diabolical organization. You know, they sell aborted, murdered unborn babies' body parts. I mean, they're just ruthless. They're just an evil organization doing evil work for unborn and for women in crises and everything else. You're telling me that they are by name in this framework and encouraged to come onto campus to talk to what grade levels we're talking about here?
We're talking about particularly the middle school and high school grades for the ACLU and Planned Parenthood. But yeah, that's That's such an important point, Brad. Planned Parenthood, such a controversial organization. I think that's about the best thing you can say about them. And they're getting free airtime in our curriculum frameworks. They're getting free promotion like few other special interest groups other than, as I mentioned a moment ago, the ACLU are also getting as resources that the state is telling local districts they need to reach out to and bring into the health class to talk to students.
Yeah, I know when they are talking to these students, I bet they're probably telling these students, I'm just guessing, ACLU, looking at what their modus operandus has been in the past, they're probably encouraging students to say, hey, contact us, call us. Contact us if you think your rights are being violated. And what are the kinds of things, rights that these kids are being told that parents should be concerned about probably? What are some of the thinking that they're being encouraged to have or to delve into?
Well, Brad, we've dealt with this in a number of school districts in places like the Bay Area, in places like Southern California. This is the first time that I've seen this rolled out as a statewide kind of an issue. But we know what this looks like. We've seen instances where Planned Parenthood has been invited into the classroom in the context of sex education, and they've brought people in who describe themselves as pleasure activists, and we won't get into all of the details about that. It's too it's actually not even appropriate for radio because of how explicit it is what they want to present to your and my kids in those classes.
Yeah. It's the fact that we can't even really talk about it on radio because it is that outrageous. I think should be very alarming to parents. And right now, this curriculum is recommended. It's going to be for the implementation in curriculum in California, including the textbooks used by charter schools in California. But also, a lot of these textbooks and curriculum are going to be used, once again, by other states, other school districts that a lot of teacher union control, for example, because the teachers' unions are very much behind this. This is a part of their mantra, and that's very concerning. What about this material dealing with abuse? Now, this, I think, is going to be a shocker for many parents, this language. What kind of abuse are they addressing in this curriculum that could cause a lot of children to be permanently removed from their parents? What kind of abuse?
Yeah, this is really concerning, Brad, because when you and I think about abuse, we think about some really serious stuff. We think about physical abuse. We think about sexual abuse. We think about criminal activities that certainly every child needs to be protected from. And this has come into the context of the health curriculum by way of them talking about healthy relationships, especially for middle school, for high schools, for dating. But what they've done is they're telling kids now there are 6 kinds of abuse that they need to worry about. Now, not only physical and sexual abuse, but they need to be on the lookout for financial, technological, and even spiritual abuse. And so the spiritual abuse is what really grabbed our attention. And so as we delve more into this, the concept is so open-ended, it's so vague, that it could leave a lot of students questioning their faith and their religious leaders, could leave them with the impression that trying to expect that, say, a boyfriend is going to attend church with his girlfriend could be a form of some type of abuse or an unhealthy relationship.
Well, also, Matt, if let's say that parents teach their children to have boundaries regarding sexual activities, let's say they say to a child who's, say, 13, who says they want to change their gender, say, hey, we want to get counseling for you. That's not what God's word says. God made you wonderfully, and every cell in your body says what your gender is. We're going to pray for you and give you Christian counseling. Something like that could qualify as spiritual abuse, right?
Well, we've seen, certainly, Brad, more and more places where this is becoming a real problem for families in crisis and families who are trying to deal with this through counseling. And Brad, the concept is so open-ended in these curriculum frameworks that we're talking about that they're telling kids that limiting someone's ability to do what they enjoy is a form of, or could be, spiritual abuse. And
Wow.
It's so open-ended that, there's a lot of things that we need to limit our kids' exposure to, things that they may enjoy, but that are not good for them.
Right.
And this is directly challenging parents and their ability to protect their kids.
Right. Like sexual experimentation or pornography or all kinds of things that parents need to help guide their kids, to protect their kids. And this opens the door for action, intervention, because of parents carrying out Christian principles with Christian boundaries. And the word abuse, folks, I want to remind you, this is not just a fluff word, a neutral word. This is a word that has significant legal ramifications. Abuse is a word that is used to justify the removal of children permanently from families. Now, I'm not saying that's how this is going to be applied, but I am saying the potential is there. It's a very strong word, and we need to be very concerned about it, because now it's, by its language, spiritual abuse is actually pointing at dead center people living and practicing and carrying out their faith, and particularly their Christian faith. So this is very concerning. The sex ed material, the promotion in terms of sexual activities is so outrageous. I can't even talk about it on the show, but you need to be aware of what's going on. Matt, where should people go to get information about this so they can pass it on to others? What should they do?
Well, Brad, number one, we strongly encourage people to get connected to our website at pji.org. Sign up for our updates. Just recently, we sent out an update on this particular issue, something that is really not something you'll hear about in mainstream media or from other sources. And we included with that a link to the letter that we sent to the State Board of Education on this issue. I want to let folks know we've got so many cases, so many resources on our site. If they have trouble locating that on our site, you should definitely feel free to reach out to our office. Give us a call. We would love to make sure that they have this information in their hands and at their fingertips. And, even reach out to the State Board of Education and chime in and support for the letter that we've sent.
Right. Yeah, people need to be informed. God wants us to be watchful in all things, not have our head in the sand. So, folks, once again, to sign up to get our updates on this and other materials, to look at our resources, all of our information is free. Our legal representation is free. Our cases more than doubled in the last year. But feel free to go to our website and take advantage of that. Go to pacificjustice.org, 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 or if you just want to use the shorter acronym, it's pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org, pji.org. They'll both get you there. Hey, Matt, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Keep it up, and God bless.
Thanks, Brad.
So on June 7th, I went to pick up my daughter from kindergarten, and she ran up to me and said that her friend was no longer a boy, he was now a girl, and that he had a new girl name. Went home, asked my daughter about it. I looked up the book on YouTube. My daughter told me the name of the book. It was I Am Jazz. So we watched the book being read, and we found out that she had been taught what transgenderism is. He had come to school dressed as a boy. The teacher had read the book, and afterwards he went into the bathroom, which was in the classroom. He went into the bathroom, changed into a dress, and came out. He was then announced as his new girl name, and the class was told that he was now a girl. For my daughter, having that book read and then seeing her little friend that she had known since preschool go into a bathroom, change clothes, and come out, in her 5-year-old brain, she thought oh my goodness, all I have to do to change into a boy is to change my clothes. My daughter was taking a bath and she got up out of the water and her hair was slicked back and she saw a reflection of herself. And she started crying and shaking and she was like, Mommy, I turned into a boy. I don't want to be a boy. And she was scared. She was really concerned about what she was wearing or how she looked. There were other kids in the class that were afraid that their blood could turn into boy blood. Another little boy went home and his mom had to have the entire sex talk with him about body parts. It was very confusing. And again, the parents had no idea what had been taught in class. So they were all exposed to this highly controversial sexual topic without having any, without even thinking about their own sexuality yet. There were members of the LGBT community that were actually transgender that came up to us and said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that happened. And I stand with you and I'm for parental rights. And that wasn't right what happened. And I'm so sorry that got taught to them. And that to me was just so amazing because the point of it was I was protecting my daughter and the other kids in that class because they all have the right to be protected, all of them. And so it was actually really beautiful. I loved working with the Pacific Justice Institute because I felt like they had my same heart. It wasn't about like fear or judgment or anything. It was like, hey, let's like support you and help you through this, and let's fight for the rights for everybody. It was never about hate or anything, which made it super easy. I would totally recommend Pacific Justice Institute if you have something that happened at your school, if you have legal questions. Don't be afraid to stand up for what's right and to protect your kids.
When we heard about this situation at Rockland Academy, we got involved right away. We gave counsel to the parents on what the law did or didn't say, and we drafted a model policy for the charter school to adopt. Now, unfortunately, the school refused to apologize to the parents for the lack of communication, and they also refused to give a strong assurance to the parents that they would receive prior notice or that they would have the opportunity to opt their children out of similar circumstances in the future. If you ever have trouble with your school teaching your child something that you feel is not appropriate for your child, don't hesitate to give us a call or go to our website, pji.org. We're here to help. And folks, if you'd like to support the Pacific Justice Institute on either a one-time or a monthly basis, we would greatly appreciate that. Just go to our website, pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org, pji.org. And there you can also sign up to get our weekly Legal Insider. It's a free update that we send telling you what's happening, telling you about things that you're not going to hear about in mainstream media, but are very important and things you can be praying for as well. We also have a lot of great resources there on our website. One of them is our article talking about the 12 steps you can take to protect your children from social workers, to protect your kids from being wrongfully taken by zealous social workers. We just talked in the first half of the show on one of the reasons on why children can be taken now potentially, and that's because of, quote, spiritual abuse. You need to be aware of what you can do right now in all 50 states on how to protect your children in this regard. That's just one of our resources. Another one we have are opt-out forms that are really helpful in all 50 states to help protect your children from being exposed to indoctrination and things that you as a parent lovingly and carefully would not want your children exposed to. These are great resources. Download these or distribute these as you wish from our website, pji.org, pji.org. And for everyone who decides to support the Pacific Justice Institute with a new donation this month of January, or you decide you want to support us on a monthly basis, that support for this month is going to be matched dollar for dollar, folks. Dollar for dollar. And the monthly support will be matched not just for the first month, but for the first 12 months. So it's a great opportunity to become a part of our team at Pacific Justice. That's how we do our work, and it's very much appreciated. Once again, pji.org. Now, we have with us on the line one of our attorneys. I call him our Bulldog of Oregon attorney, Ray Hacke. He is a fantastic attorney, a very powerful, strong litigator, and he's taken on a very important case right now involving a Christian who was kept in prison, not because he was being bad, not because he wasn't abiding by the rules, but because of his Christian faith. He was kept in prison longer than he should have been. That's what we're going to talk about right now. It's a very disturbing case. And I'm very pro law enforcement. I think people need to, if they do the crime, they do the time. I mean, that's sort of been my mindset. But I don't believe people should be deliberately kept in prison because of their Christian faith and their life-changing experience in prison with regards to their relationship with God through Christ. So to talk about this, welcome Ray Hacke on the program.
Glad to be here, Brad.
All right, Ray. Now, first tell me about the gentleman we're talking about who was wrongfully treated. Tell us about, his name is Timothy Kruger, correct?
That is correct, Brad. Tim is a former inmate in Oregon's prison system. He entered in 2017 after pleading guilty to driving with suspended or revoked license. He was sentenced to 2 years, but based on credit for time served and the possibility of time off for good behavior, he had an expected release date of July 2018. While he was incarcerated, Tim rededicated himself to his Christian faith, which he had just drifted away from.
Right.
He began reading his Bible, attending church services regularly, and wanting to get clean from drug addiction as part of his repentance. Tim entered what's called the Alternative Incarceration Program, or AIP, at a facility in Eastern Oregon.
Okay, sounds like things are going great for Tim. He's doing everything that I would want to see a prisoner do. And I'd be very encouraged by what he's doing and what's taking place. But apparently someone wasn't that happy. Now, as far as this program, though, let me talk about that for a moment. What exactly is it? How does it run? I want people to understand the significance of what he enrolled in.
Right. Well, the AIP, or Alternative Incarceration Program, is run by a private organization called New Directions Northwest, and it's under the supervision of the Oregon Department of Corrections, specifically the facility that he was in. That's Powder River over in Baker City on the eastern side of Oregon. Now, to graduate from the AIP, a person must complete 3 phases, with a counselor signing off on the completion of each phase. One of an inmate's rewards for completing the program is an early release. Tim completed all 3 phases, and we've got the documents to prove it.
Okay, so he did. Wait, so he did. Wait, I want to make sure people understand this. So he completed. There were 3 phases. He completed all 3 phases. Right?
That is correct.
Okay, so where's the rub? What's the problem?
Well, the problem is apparently that about a month into the program, New Directions assigned him a counselor named Cynthia Flynn. From the get-go, Ms. Flynn seemed to have it in for him, and she seemed to express a lot of hostility toward his Christian faith. She wouldn't allow him to talk about it in group sessions, and when he did bring it up, she accused him of using his faith as a crutch. What's especially troubling is that other counselors, including Flynn's supervisor, saw the progress he was making. Now, the situation escalated around the time of graduation. Tim talked about his plan of rehabilitation, which included regular church attendance and regular visits with his pastor. Mrs. Flynn didn't like that at all. She recommended that Tim's stay in the prison facility be extended, and the prison granted that request. She even took away Tim's graduation certificate and medallion. That's right, he went through graduation. She flunked him out of the program soon after.
What? She took away his graduation certificate and medallion? Like she wasn't wanting him to be recognized as finishing the program that he finished?
That's correct. She said it was due to a lack of progress.
To a lack of progress. That's disturbing because he went through the program. His life was being changed. He's completed it. And he's being kept from being released because of his faith, because of his Christian faith. That is really, Ray, I am really disturbed about that. How we have people there in our prisons that are punishing prisoners because of their Christian faith, because of their life-changing experience. Obviously, she can't relate to that. And you know what? I want you to be praying for this lady, folks. She obviously has issues of her own. Maybe we could speculate all day long of what's going on with her. But just think also, how many other people has she punished? Has she taken out this vendetta against because of their Christian faith and their Christian principles? This is very counterproductive, not only just from a civil rights perspective, it's very counterproductive to the purpose of prisons, the life-changing transformation that we want to see take place. She is punishing it, and she is discouraging people from having those experiences. I guess in order for him to make it through her standards, he'd have to hide his faith, hide the spiritual transformation, and have an attitude of, these are all the great things that I did from the inner self, inner power within me. I guess that might be acceptable to someone like that. But nonetheless, this is very real. So what are we trying to accomplish in this case, Ray? What ball are we trying to move forward?
Well, we filed suit in federal court seeking money damages, which is really the only remedy we could pursue at this point. But basically, the whole point is to hold both New Directions Northwest and Ms. Flynn, as well as the Oregon Department of Corrections, accountable for taking away Timothy Kruger's hard-won freedom, which he rightfully earned. Right.
Now, the reason you say we're suing for monetary damages, it's because he's already out of prison. He already served his extra 6 months of confinement and degradation for his faith. So he's now out. So we don't need an injunction to order him. He's already out. So that's why we're suing for monetary damages. When was that lawsuit filed, and where are we at right now?
We filed it over a week ago, and right now we're just waiting for the defendants in the case to file an answer so that proceedings can begin moving forward. I've already given the summons and the complaint to the local sheriff's department so that they can serve it.
Right. Okay, good. Now, this was filed in state court or federal court?
This is filed in federal court because we're suing under federal civil rights laws.
Okay. And the bottom line is that it's not constitutional for the government to bully an inmate with more time behind bars because of their faith and spiritual life-changing experience with Jesus Christ and the Christian faith. They shouldn't be punished for that. That's a violation on its face, I know, of the First Amendment, the Free Exercise Clause. It's also state hostility to religion. What other civil rights actions are we looking at here?
Well, we're looking at a cause of action under 42 U.S.C. 1985, which basically prohibits conspiracies to deprive somebody of civil rights. Now, here we've got multiple parties in the case, both private and public, and so basically, Ms. Flynn, she's the one who recommended that Timothy Kruger's stay in the Oregon prison system be extended. And usually the prison system accepts the counselor's recommendations, and so they put their stamp of approval on it.
Right, they're all working together, Ray, on this, and they all need to be held accountable. And I'm just glad we have an attorney like you there in our Salem, Oregon office to take this on. And I'm also glad that Tim contacted us at the Pacific Justice Institute to represent him in this case without charge. And folks, this is because a lot of support we receive from listeners out there right now. That's why we're able to handle this case. That's why we have an office in Oregon, And if you'd like to support that office in Oregon or our new office in the state of Washington, contact us at Pacific Justice Institute or go to our website, pji.org, and pray. Pray for our client, pray for Ray, the attorney handling this case, and pray for these people involved in this, that their eyes would be opened up and that the hostility, the animosity, and the attacks on people of faith will be brought to a halt. Ray, thank you for the work you're doing. God bless and keep it up.
Thank you, Brad.
So, folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus of the Pacific Justice Institute. Have a good weekend.